Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints, here with some more UCL Fantasy content. As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Right then, in my previous video, I made the case that limitless chip in Matchday 2 is something that definitely should be considered. And at that point in time, I was quite dismissive of a wildcard in Matchday 2, just felt as if it would be too soon. But then I actually looked at my team and thought, there might be quite a few weak links here, and perhaps there may be a justification to wildcard in match day 2. I mean, I look at the players in question here as well. Like already in the starting 11 midfield, I could make a couple of changes, and perhaps a couple of changes in my backline there as well. So yeah, it got me thinking, can I produce a better draft than my existing one for match day 2? And I think the answer here is yes, I can make a better team. And that's what I'm going to do in this video, construct a wildcard 2 draft. And I might even act upon it actually, that if I feel that I'm going to score more points with my hypothetical wildcard 2 draft, then it may very well be the case that I'm just going to go all in and hope for the best with the draft in question. So, look, without further ado, let's get straight into it and attempt to construct the hypothetical wildcard 2 draft. And there will be some players that I am going to be retaining as well in my draft. So, I'll probably start off by focusing on them first and foremost because there's no point in reinventing the wheel, as it were. So I'll also have, factor in the FDR that I've shared previously. This is from the Fantasy Football Pundit, so on screen there. So I'll be referencing this as well. So yeah, let's crack on and start off with the players that I will retain in this hypothetical wildcard 2 draft first and foremost. And I think on the whole, the reason I'm doing this is that a lot of the players won't be retained. So one of the players that I am going to retain for this draft is Schlotterbeck. I definitely want Dortmund defensive cover when they've got Celtic at home and also Sparta Prague at home and Dynamo Zagreb at home in 3 of their next 4 games. I think that is a no-nonsense pick. I did look at cheaper Dortmund defensive assets, but they seem to be more of a rotation risk. So yeah, without overthinking it, it makes sense to retain Schlotterbeck in my wildcard 2 hypothetical draft at this moment in time. The other player that I'm going to retain is Lamine Yamal. Kind of feels like a cheat code at £7.5 million. It's got young boys, it's got Red Star and Brest in 3 of the next 4 games. So absolutely no nonsense to keep him in my wildcard 2 draft as well. And yeah, so far 1 out of 5 of the defenders, 1 out of 5 of the midfielders. But there is another midfielder I will retain, Gonçalves of Sporting Lisbon. Started off with a return in the opening match, got PSV, Sparta Prague in the next 2 games, and then Bruges in a match further down the line, got City and Arsenal, of course, in the next 2, but 3 of the next 5 seem fairly reasonable. And with a team like Sporting Lisbon, they seem as if they could almost score against anyone, so happy to retain him. The next one is Harry Kane, goal-scoring machine for whoever he plays for, just can't win a trophy, unfortunately for him. Yeah, Villa and Barcelona will be tricky matches, but with Harry Kane, you can't really go wrong there. And of course, Benfica and PSG further down the line, but with him, it's really about the fixture-proof ability there. And the other player I'm going to retain is Gyökeres of Sporting Lisbon. Again, we've already discussed the fixtures that they have as well that are fairly reasonable, but then really it's about his prolific goal-scoring nature, which is why you're going to ultimately keep him in this team. So yeah, in total, we've retained 5 players. Now, with the goalkeepers, Blaswich and Di Gregorio, it's quite popular picks actually as a combination, and they rotate very well for the first 4 games. But I've now found a rotation combo of goalkeepers that actually are quite good for the entirety of the league phase, as it were, of this new Champions League format. So the first goalkeeper I'm going to get, and this is almost like a significant update, almost no one will have this goalkeeper in their respective teams because there was an injury. Just going to Barcelona's main goalkeeper. There we go. Ter Stegen, who obviously got injured. It's not showing up there, but no doubt Peña will be the starting goalkeeper for Barcelona. So in he comes at 4.5 million cut price. Of course, I had Kubasi as the original Barcelona defensive cover, but with the rotation I'm going to show you, it makes sense to have Peña as the goalkeeper from Barcelona. And the other player I'm going to go for, if I can just remove Barcelona's filter here, and if I just spell his name right as well, Sherpen, there he is. So Sturm Graz's goalkeeper, very reasonable run, but you obviously wouldn't want to start him in most of the matches, but here's where the rotation would work. So if I just get the FDR up here, so with Barcelona in particular and Sturm Graz, have I got Sturm Graz in the same screen? Yes, I do. So you'd start as your number one goalkeeper. You'd have Barcelona against Young Boys as your preferred keeper. Of course, you can stick and twist accordingly. And then in match day 3, you'd go to Sturm Graz for Sporting. And then match day 4, you'd go to Barcelona because they've got Red Star Belgrade. And match day 5, they've got Brest. And then in match day 6, Sturm Graz have Lille. So you'd start that goalkeeper as your primary one. And then in match day 7, you'd be Atalanta or Benfica, almost 50-50 there. And then match day 8, Leipzig and Atalanta. So the rotation there, surprisingly, is very flexible for the goalkeepers in question. So yeah, reasonable run of games as well. So the key thing here is just to confirm that with Sherpen, he will play on the 2nd of October, and for Peña, he will play on the 1st of October. So just making sure that the match days are separate for both of them. So in they both come as the 9 million goalkeeping combo. And the reason that the goalkeeping combo is light, as was the case in my actual team, is that you want to spread funds across the pitch. So the one player that really springs to mind for me that isn't in my team, he's creating loads of chances. And in FPL, he's actually listed at £7 million. But surprisingly, in UCL Fantasy, there he is, Trent Alexander-Arnold, is only £6 million, creating chances for fun, and definitely want some sort of Liverpool cover. I think the fixtures, you look at them, Bologna, Leipzig, of course, Leverkusen and Real Madrid might be tricky. Then you've got Girona. Makes sense to have some sort of Liverpool cover. So in comes Trent Alexander-Arnold into this hypothetical wildcard 2 draft. So that brings me on to my next defender. Again, trying to keep it fairly heavy with respect to the options that are available. And I'm going to go for Real Madrid. And he's right there, actually. Rudiger, 6 million as well. Reasonable run of games. You'd want to start him come rain or shine. So in he comes. And I'm going to actually have a look. I think I've got a feeling I might need to restore another. I might need to restore another player as well in this draft if I just confirm it here as well. So I think I am going to restore Cambiasso as well because I want some Juve cover because they still have a generous run of games. £5.5 million. He's got a bit of attacking prowess. So yeah, make sure I've got him. So apologies, missed him out as part of my players that I'd want to recover. So that leaves me with 5 spots to fill with 36.5 million in the bank. So I also can't just have like premium after premium. I am going to go for a cheaper defender here as well. And the one that catches my eye is Vitic of Sparta Prague, who surprisingly got an interesting result in their opening game, £4 million. And I think the goal scorer for Sparta Prague is also £4 million as well. But I looked at the X-mins for a lot of their defenders, which are problematic. Vitic seemed to be the more safer one. And with Vitic, yeah, got Man City, Atletico Madrid, then there might be some matches you'd want to rely upon him as well. In terms of the actual match days, so Trent plays on the 2nd of October, Schlotterbeck plays on the 1st, Rudiger plays on the 2nd, Vitic plays on the 1st, and Cambiasso plays on the 2nd. So there is enough rotation available as and when required for stick and twist options with this defensive combination with the goalkeepers and the defenders. So that's four players left with £32.5 million to spend. So what I am going to do now, just go back. The other player that I didn't have, again, it was due to injury and I wasn't sure if he was going to start or not, is, if I just get him up, Jude Bellingham, 9 million in UCL Fantasy, 25% owned. He's a no-nonsense pick, but obviously I've deselected Mbappe. I needed some attacking Real Madrid cover as well, so Bellingham complements Rudiger as the Real Madrid options for me. So with the remaining 3 slots here as well, I need to make sure that, again, just get the balance right here as well. And a player who actually was on my radar and someone who I actually didn't buy, and I regretted not buying him, is Florian Wirtz of Bayer Leverkusen, £7.5 million. He had a monster haul of 18 points, very high ownership as well. And I think that was the difference between me having an amazing match day 1 and a reasonable one by not owning him. So again, had so many other options. I bought De Bruyne instead of Wirtz. It is what it is, but can't redo that. But I can make up for it certainly by having Florian Wirtz as a wildcard 2 draft option. So that leaves me with just £16 million to fill. And a player, again, with that, I'm definitely going to go for a premium forward, but I also need a budget midfielder. And in some ways, the player that I'm going to go to now is definitely a cheat code and someone who's getting lots of minutes as well for their respective club this season. And I hope it remains that way. So I'm going to go for a £5 million midfielder. And really, there's only one you'd consider. There he is, Morgan Rogers, £5 million, playing in a very advanced role for Aston Villa in the Premier League and the Champions League. And yeah, it seems crazy not to have him when he's only that price. He finally got some returns in the Premier League for Aston Villa, and hopefully he can replicate that form in the Champions League as well. So that leaves me with 11 million exactly. And the player who I regretted not having, but I dodged a bullet by him basically blanking, and I think it would be crazy not to have him at all in match day 2, is Haaland. There you go, exactly £11 million. So I've got obviously had Mbappe, had Gyökeres, had Kane, but then not having Haaland when he's got looking at the fixtures at hand, it would be quite scary not to have him. So yeah, I mean, we know what he can do. It's Erling Haaland. That's really all I have to say there. And I look at this draft now, I compare it with my previous draft, doing a like for like. Got Kane, Gyökeres, and Mbappe versus having Haaland. I mean, the midfield, Gluck and De Bruyne, look problematic. And then got Serge Gnabry, who was a bit of a fail for me. I think the defense is fairly light as well. I'm already thinking, you know what, this is the comparison between this wildcard 2 draft and my actual match day 1 team. There's like clear daylight here. I'm really tempted to even activate now because of the variation there. And also, just to show you the variation on match days. So Yamal plays on the 1st. Jude Bellingham plays on the 2nd. Gonzalez plays on the 1st. Florian Wirtz will play on the 1st. and Morgan Rogers will play on the second. So variation in midfield as well. I can chop and change accordingly with the stick and twist substitutions. And with my forwards, Kane on the second, Gyökeres will play on the first, and Haaland will play on the first as well. I think I had an issue whereby all of my strikers played on the first day itself in match day 1, which ideally you wouldn't necessarily want on a regular basis. But if I just do my famous super zoom in now to talk you through my picks, so I'll do a SWOT analysis as well. I mean, in terms of the most formidable and balanced front line, you'd have to say Kane, Gyökeres and Haaland fit the bill. Okay, with Mbappe as a close alternate in the event you can't afford or can't have Haaland or Kane. But I think as a template who the elite UCL fantasy managers will pick, and I'm certainly not one of those, I've got no doubt that this starting lineup of this front three makes perfect sense. Onto the midfield, we've got Yamal. We know what he's capable of doing. Bellingham, if he's not scoring, he'll certainly be assisting. And then Gonçalves, along with Gyökeres, are goal-scoring machines in these so-called non-elite Champions League teams. Florian Wirtz was an absolute sensation for Bayer Leverkusen last season. And I think Morgan Rogers seems like a bandwagon waiting to happen, really, in FPL and UCL Fantasy. And perfect player as a piece of the jigsaw who you look at it, look at all your £5 million options in UCL Fantasy. You won't find a better one in midfield. He is pretty much a cheat code, I'd have to say. Onto the defence now. As I've mentioned, Trent Alexander-Arnold for the attacking prowess. And then you've got Schlotterbeck and Rudiger for their proven pedigree. And also, to be fair, Rudiger's got a bit of attacking prowess as well. Vitic as a £4 million, I don't call him an enabler, but he is an enabler in many respects as well. But I feel that with him, you've got the peace of mind that they've started off reasonably well. You really wouldn't want to rely on him, but you've got him as an option in your draft as and when required. And Cambiasso for the Juve defensive cover, of course, had the double up with Di Gregorio and Cambiasso, and they conceded literally in the final seconds of their match, which also prevented me from scoring over 100 points. And then this goalkeeping rotation, which wasn't available really until after Ter Stegen's injury for Barcelona, Pena and Sherpen, that rotation, like I've showed you on this FDR that's available from the Fantasy Football Pundit, it literally does work from match day 2 to match day 8. So be sure to factor that in if you are going to wildcard. So from my side, because it is UCL Fantasy, there are risks that I'm prepared to take that I wouldn't ordinarily take in FPL. And I think there is a case for using the limitless chip as early as match day 2. I also think that, you know what, this wildcard hypothetical draft for match day 2 and beyond looks fairly robust as well. It wouldn't look out of place really as a option for me. But then, of course, I use my wildcard now. What is the other time I'd use my wildcard? Of course, you get unlimited transfers from the round of 16 onwards, but I do want to max out my chips as early as possible. There is talk of limitless being an option in match day 3, but I look, it's safe to say this, that I am definitely going to use a chip in match day 2. I've just got to work out if it's limitless or if it's the wild card. I'll put a link in the description below for the limitless draft. But looking at this match day 2 wildcard 2 draft, I really do like it, and I would be willing to just switch over, and then I could utilize the limitless chip in match day 3. I think that is an option for me. I certainly wouldn't use the limitless chip outside of the group stages. I think you're looking for a situation whereby you've got the heavier teams versus the so-called non-elite teams option in the group stages where you'd maximize the limitless chip. And the wild card, again, we've got the leagues phase now, which is more prolonged than the 6 group match days. You've got extra 2 games. So to be fair, there is some wisdom in actually using the wild card slightly later in the group stage as opposed to match day 2. And all sorts can happen with the festive fixture rush. There might be further injuries. Of course, didn't have the Barcelona goalkeeper previously, but Peña's 4.5 is there. But who knows who else could be injured and what other complications that may hold in the respective match days ahead. But look, honestly, I need your feedback. You are the UCL experts in many respects. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Does this wildcard draft make sense? Have I got the balance right? Have I got the balance wrong? I certainly think the balance is right. And I'd be shocked if you said that this is a rogue maverick type of draft. I think it's a very logical draft. And I really can't look beyond it right now. So ultimately, for me, it's a choice between Limitless Chip, not too dissimilar to the team that I constructed in my previous video, or pretty much this wildcard draft. I really can't work out who else I'd really switch in this draft, but these are the kind of players that I want. As always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated.